Thanks for joining us for I'd Rather Be a Buffalo. I'm Kevin Gregg. That's Doug Riggle. We're here to help talk about getting through life storms, life challenges with God's help. If you're new here, please watch our other videos, like, subscribe, all that stuff. I'll tell you what we are going to talk about today because we've been doing some posting at the time that we're recording this. Doug reached out to me and he wanted to comment on a Facebook post that he had made, which got a lot of it got a lot of traction, right? Because I think that it resonated personally. What was your post about, Doug?
Talked about the importance of pets in our lives and how they're great stress relievers and just really good for you emotionally if you're dealing with things. And I lost my dog, Andrew, a little over a year and a half ago. And I actually, yeah, a little longer than that. Before I moved to South Carolina, when I was still in Ohio, I lost him. Um, and I'd waited for the longest time for the right dog to come along. And now I've got Andrew, or I'm sorry, I've got Omega,
Yes.
and he's been a joy to have, and he's just been good for me emotionally. Even though, I thought about the fact that, if worse comes to worse, maybe I have a couple of years left and he's going to have to go to another family. Um, but my hope is that I outlive him by a good long time, but you
Yeah.
never know. Nothing's a given anymore in this day and age. But having him has just been great for me. Keeps me on my toes, keeps me more active, which has been good for my health overall. He'll walk into my office in the middle of the day and like with a toy in his mouth, like, hey, it's time to play. Let's get up, stop sitting down on your backside for hours on end, and let's
Oh my
go have some
gosh.
fun.
I so have that right now too. Well, the interesting thing is that this also dovetails in with a conversation that we'd had a while back, which was also you getting Omega was almost like, hey, I got to get back to living again,
Yes.
right? Because I mean, you had Andrew had passed away, and then it was like just a few months after Andrew passed away that all of a sudden you got your cancer diagnosis.
Yeah.
And so the idea of like kind of going everything just being up in the air and just going like, I don't know what's going to happen. And what was that turning point for you specifically that made you go, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to pull the trigger and get another dog.
I had been getting consistent good reports back from my cancer scans.
Hmm.
And it wasn't just one or two, it was like five.
Yeah.
Actually, it's more than that.
Yeah.
Um, More like seven or eight.
Yeah.
Good reports back. Everything's under control. Everything's moving forward. Survived my first year, did more than survived. I started learning how to thrive. And I'm like, you know what? I live in this big old house by myself and I need a dog. And it took me a while of searching. I went back to the rescue place in Ohio that I'd gotten two of my dogs from, and they were able to put me in touch with someone getting rid of a smooth collie, which is my preference. And we connected, and we probably talked back and forth for 2 to 3 months. And then holidays came up. I was in Ohio for Thanksgiving. I'm like, let me get back from Ohio, and then we'll meet each other. We actually met up in Roanoke, Virginia, and did the exchange. And I've got a great dog who's probably asleep behind me right over here.
Well, yeah.
Omega,
And
come here. He's like, what?
he's like, oh, what? There he is. I can see him down there. I can at least see his body. Come here, buddy.
Yeah. You want to come up? You want to come up? Come on. Oh,
There he
he
is.
was sleeping. He was.
Poor little older dog, right? How old was he?
He'll be two next Friday.
Yeah. That's good. So you got
He's
him.
got it's old soul to him, but he's a young pup still.
Well,
But
you
he's just
got him. You got him also out of the puppy stage too, which is like we got a young one, Frankie, who's about 7 months. We've had her since she was about I don't know how old she was, maybe about 3 months
going back
old.
to sleep.
That's okay. I don't blame you, Omega. You've always had collies, right? You've had collies like most of your life.
Most of my life. Yep.
Yeah. Huge, huge blessing, right? There is
Yeah.
something about that when we were both in New Orleans, we were I'm pretty sure I had this conversation with with your friend Chris that you work with her and her husband. But she was talking about, she's talking about the dogs and all the stuff that she had. And I think that she shared the story about how there was I'm pretty sure that this was Chris's story, but she shared the story about how there was a woman in their neighborhood who didn't who didn't have any animals. She was an older lady. She was sort of like living by herself. And somehow or another, I think that her adult son had a dog that she ended up like the son said, "Hey, I need you to take care of the dog for a while." And then next thing you know, like this woman who was pretty much a, recluse, she was going out and taking the dog for walks, and now she's like interacting. It's the minute that you have a dog, it's like you're starting to interact and know your neighbors. And now she's, here's this woman that's been this recluse for like years in their neighborhood, and now all of a sudden she's like come out of her shell and talking to other people and like going, "Oh, did you hear about so and so down the block?" And it's a beautiful thing, right? Like there's something to be said about having to it's something, an animal is so good because it gives us something to be able to um, be in charge of or to take care of and to kind of put us in a little bit of a routine. And the
Hmm.
other things which you talked about too, which I want you to elaborate on a little bit about, you know, you basically have this non-judgmental, being that's in your house. Expand on that a bit, eh?
Well, you've got this, I would say, almost like a reflection of God, 'cause you've got someone who's looking at you with absolute love. Um, and the picture I posted of it I did it on Instagram and on Facebook, is of our trip from Roanoke. And he's like right in my face. He likes faces. He likes to smell the faces. And he's just investigating me and just hanging out. And um, but yeah, it's that unconditional love you get. It's the relaxation that animals provide. Just and he's spoiled. I'll admit that. But we'll be on the couch at night. He'll have his head in my lap, and I'll just be stroking him, and he's drifting off to sleep, and I'm watching television, and it's just a good little world for the both of us.
Right? There's something so comforting. I mean, I know that there's people that are going to listen to this and just go, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe the dog sleep in bed with us, every night." It's so crazy. Like it's like grandma, what was it? Like grandma's feather bed, right? That John
Oh
Denver
yeah,
song.
Don
Oh
Denver
my
song, good
gosh,
song.
man. Holy smokes. We got a California king, and I will tell you, in the morning it's like at some point or another, our adult son with autism has made his way into our bed. The two dogs are in our bed. I can't tell you, I'm like sleeping I'm sleeping on the edge of our bed because we've got so many beings in our bed at the same time. It's just, well, I mean, listen, it's a good thing. I complain about it. But there is nothing better for sure, you know?
And
Uh,
he keeps me on my toes, and he's an alarm clock. 7 a.m. It's time for him to get up. Time for him
yeah,
to get fed.
yeah.
And if it's before 7, he's still asleep. Now this morning I woke up a little bit before 7 with this much of the bed for me, and then somehow he had turned sideways and was taking up the rest of the bed. Don't know how that happened in the middle of the night,
There's
but
something that happens with that, man. With kids and dogs, it's that, right? Like they literally they literally just go out. Here's a picture from Instagram right there. This is the two of you guys on your trip. It's awesome.
oh,
I love this. I'm going to read your caption right here. During struggles, there's a beacon of unwavering love and comfort. Our beloved pets, whether it's a gentle nuzzle, a playful wag of the tail, or a purring cuddle, their presence brings solace and joy, especially during our toughest times. During moments of struggle, our furry friends offer a steady anchor, reminding us to breathe, to smile, and to find beauty in the simple moments. Their unconditional love knows no bounds, enveloping us in warmth and understanding when words fail. From the depths of loneliness to the peaks of stress, having a pet by your side is like having a loyal, confidant who listens without judgment and supports without hesitation. Their presence alone can light up the darkest of days and soothe the most troubled of souls. So let's celebrate the invaluable companionship of our pets, recognizing the profound impact they have on our mental and emotional well being. Together, let's cherish these precious moments, knowing with our furry friends by our side, we can weather any storm that comes our way. There's your buddy Omega on a car
Yeah.
trip. And of course, that was the whole thing on Facebook too, where you just got like a ton of people just doing shout outs about their pets. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the thing.
Americans love their dogs and cats, but
Sure.
they're very much pet people. I expected to get a few responses. I did not expect to get
Yeah.
maybe 10,
Yeah.
which is great.
I
More to
will
come.
say, I will say this, right? This is where comments will get this is where we'll get flagged, right? Because I do understand it, right? I do understand people that are uh childless. I do have a little bit of an issue with people that go, well, I don't have human children. I and it's, when it gets a little bit too overboard. I have seen people over the years where, you know, I have seen some animal activists that have been in some of my friend groups where I just kind of go, yeah, guys, I get it. I do think that the human being's life trumps an animal's life. But I do believe that animals are a gift to us from God, right? And like you said before, that it can be very reflective of, I think it's two things, right? I think it's a way for us to all also understand, as much as that they have that this sort of like that unconditional love for us. There's also a caring element that we have for our pets that's also a little reflective, just a glimpse of what our relationship with our Heavenly Father is towards us, of going, hey, I'm going to take care of you. I heard a thing once. I forget what this was, but it was, I feel like it might have been like an 18th century Scottish writer or somebody like that he was writing and reflecting on stuff, and he was thinking about his dog that was sitting next to him, and he had a library and a study that he was in, and he thought, wow, here is this animal who is warm and cared for and hanging out here by my side, and yet that animal unfortunately has no idea of what the books on the shelves mean or what's contained in those books or what's there. They just know, they just trust. They're like right here in this moment. But there's this whole other part of the world and understanding that they don't have. And I think that the writer was using it again as a comparison with us in terms of the heavenly kingdom and what's to come, which is that we get it, but we can only understand so much. We only have so much depth of understanding. And yeah, I thought that was a super powerful thing too. Super,
Yeah,
super important.
that's really good. I've been reading through Ezekiel with some people at church and the descriptive nature of Ezekiel and what he saw and tried to describe. And like, we just don't have the words, and that's what he was able to see here on earth as a human, much less being in heaven and understanding what that's like, and Isaiah's descriptions of heaven and John's descriptions of heaven. And we get a little peek like this through blinders, and like, at some point in time the blinders are going to be lifted and we're going to see the reality of everything and be blown away.
It's kind of wild, right? Like how we sort of live this. It's very interesting that we live our life in somewhat of a fog, you know,
Mm.
that sort of living our life with some sort of a continuous filter, right? Or like, looking through a mirror darkly or whatever that is, of just like, you know, and again, it's a good reminder for me today, especially in this conversation, is that we can just get some our tendency. Talk about our animalistic tendencies, right? Our animalistic tendencies are to always try to go down to the most base levels of things. So just like, well, I just want my next thing, or I want my comfort, or I want that stuff. Uh, and just realizing that there's a whole other thing that's happening. Is it the book of Daniel where there's a prayer that Daniel, I think it's Daniel, but Daniel sends a prayer, he sends a prayer to God, and then like he doesn't get a response. And then it's like 30 days later, an angel of the Lord appears and says, I'm here right now. I'm just here. Your prayer has been heard and we have just received it and just gotten here now. And the
Hmm.
and there's the concept that there's been a huge other battle that's been going on that, and I'm pretty sure it's Daniel or whoever has no idea about this other, you know, battle that is raging, you know, uh, uh, in basically a reality which we cannot see.
Right.
Um, and all of a sudden this thing of like, again, having to be, again, it's having faith, right? Having faith, even when we can't see the results that are right in front of us, you know?
Hmm.
So, um, but there you go. There you go.
Good stuff.
Other thoughts for you today? Other stuff that's on your heart or going through your mind today?
I was just realizing with having a dog here too, I talk to myself a lot. Now I have an object to talk to. So I'm not walking around the house like I normally am, muttering to myself. I'm actually directing my conversation with the dog, who probably understands more than I realize.
Correct. Yes.
Which the other day, my friend Matt was over, my trainer, and had his shoes off and he's getting ready to leave. And Omega walked up and grabbed one of his shoes and was walking around with it, trying to get Matt to chase him. And Matt got the shoe from him. He didn't chew it up or anything, put it on, and I just looked at it like, Omega, there's another shoe over there. He looked at me, walked around, grabbed the other shoe, and started running with it. So I'm like,
So
does
funny.
he understand exactly what I just said?
Yeah, they've got to, right? That brain capacity is it is kind of wild, right? The certain type of things that they do, especially after we went through like a little bit of training that's happening here with we have two dogs. We've got one golden retriever and then this newer one, Frankie. We believe she's some sort of a mix of like a Labrador and a retriever and some sort of maybe a sheep herding dog and some sort of a terror. She's a strange mix, man. She's a scrapper. She's vocal. She's one of the most vocal dogs I've ever had. But going through that process of trying to help her understand, and she was originally raised in a Mexican family, right? So like the Mexican family, so she's used to a lot of command words in Spanish, right? So you know, but she's gotten a little bilingual, so that's good
Hey,
too. Uh, but they truly are a blessing for sure. Um, and
this
and you know and you know what I would just say this is like, and I listen, I don't want to put anybody above and beyond their means or what they can do, but I particularly see this with people that might be older or maybe just like in a single living situation. And I get it if you're living in a scenario where you can't have animals where you're at, if you're in a renting situation or something. um but especially that story after hearing that from Chris of just giving somebody purpose. uh
yeah.
my parents have been a little bit, my dad's always been good with dogs, owning dogs, but like when their last one passed away several years ago, he was just like, no, I don't want to go through that heartbreak again. And I'll have to tell you, I don't know if that should be the deciding factor, the deciding factor of like, well, I don't want to have an animal again in case it were to pass away. It's like,
Felt that way for a while. And
yeah,
oddly enough, his name is Omega, which means the last. So that's the name he came with. That irony is not lost on me. Trust me.
well,
He may be the
after
last.
after every winter, there's always a spring. That's for
That's
sure. So we've gotten all the way through all of these generations that they've been talking about. Now they're talking about Generation A now. They've decided to come all the way around. So
oh,
who knows, man? Wherever there's an ending, there's a beginning. Uh,
exactly.
so there you go. So, hey, here's what you guys can do. Share with us maybe stories about your animals that you have. if you want to share it in the comments or whatever that stuff is, or how your animal has helped you through things. Um, for me, definitely, like over the years, the animals that I've had have definitely helped me. The experience that have had have not only been, it's not only been about, companionship and duty and responsibility, and also sort of like that unconditional love thing. They've also helped me on a number of times, especially when some of my animals have passed away. They've definitely been helpful for with me embracing challenging transitions that have happened, particularly in those moments where they've either been ill or passed away or whatever, when there's a moment of like, you know, one of our first, our last retriever that we had here, uh, Bodie passed away at a relatively young age. And, again, it was a heartbreak. We tried to do things with treatments to try and help him, and then couldn't do that. But I will tell you, it's like we still remember Bodie fondly and are so grateful for him. But, it was enough for us to be able to like get through that season and to grieve that loss, but then to be able to move on. And it's it's a good thing. It's practice, right? It's practice for all of it. It's practice for the ups and the downs that come in our life as well too. So to not run away from that. If you're gonna love, you gotta love big, and you gotta be able to cry big, you know.
Hmm. Amen.
I think that that's what he's calling us to do. So there you go. Thank you, Doug, for sharing your thoughts on Omega, and just keep loving on that animal. And
You bet.
share share your comments here with us, folks. If there's stories that you want to tell us about your animals or what they mean for you, or if you can squeeze a picture in comments, sure, go ahead. Do that too. Why not? It'll help. Um, hey, great way that you can help us out here specifically with I'd Rather Be a Buffalo. Um, Follow us, particularly on Instagram. That's a great place where we are sort of doing daily interactions, but we're definitely trying to help grow our audience over there. So head on over to Instagram.com at I'd Rather Be a Buffalo. And of course, that's all the links that'll lead you back to where we have our free journals and all that other stuff. But that's a great place to visit us. So thanks for joining us. Doug, any last thoughts before we sign off here?
Yeah, I think we're good. I'm gonna go feed the dog here in a minute because he's gonna wake up. It's in Ohio or in South Carolina. It's almost 5 o'clock, so he's ready for food.
Chow time. Awesome. All right. Thanks, Doug. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.